Balance sheets. You've heard of them before, and chances are you've probably even seen them. But do you know exactly what they are, what they represent, and why they're useful? Or do they just look like boring financial reports full of meaningless numbers? Learning about balance sheets is one of the most important things you can do in business, and they're pretty handy to use in your personal life as well. That's because they can give you a good idea as to the overall financial health of your business or your personal wealth. And one of the best things about them is that they can be pretty easy to put together. All you need to do is have a basic understanding of assets, liabilities, owner's equity, and the accounting equation, and you can easily make a balance sheet for any small, uncomplicated business or for your personal life. Okay, let's get going by putting together our first balance sheet, which will be for your personal life. The first thing you need to do is pick a point in time in which you are going to evaluate your finances. Let's say, for example, that you choose the 1st of January of the current year as the date on which you want to assess your personal wealth. So to get started, at the top of your page, write your name, the word balance sheet, and as at 1 January, and then the year. By doing this, anyone who sees your report will know exactly what it is, who it's about, and on what date the report is relevant. Next, write the word assets on the top left-hand side of the page and the word liabilities on the top right-hand side as headings. Then, under the assets heading, make a list of your personal assets with their values, which could look something like this: a house worth $600,000, a car worth $50,000, and some shares or stocks worth $100,000. Then, underneath, write the words total assets and the total number, which is $750,000. Next up, you need to make a list of your personal liabilities on the right-hand side of the page, under the liabilities heading. Your list might look something like this: a mortgage on your home of $500,000, a car loan of $30,000, and a credit card debt of $5,000. Once you've finished, write the words total liabilities under the list along with the total amount, which is $535,000. Now you have a list of your assets and a list of your liabilities, as well as the totals for both. At this point, we're almost finished building the balance sheet. There's just one more step to go, and that's to include owner's equity. But how do we do that? Well, that's where the accounting equation comes in handy, because balance sheets are actually built by following this version of the accounting equation: assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. Everything on the left-hand side of the equals sign goes on the left side of the balance sheet. That's why your list of assets is on the left. And everything on the right-hand side of the equals sign goes on the right side of the balance sheet. So, in addition to the list of liabilities, we also need to include owner's equity on the right-hand side. So now, underneath your liabilities, you can write the words owner's equity. In this example, we're only going to have one owner's equity item, which we'll call personal wealth. To work out the number for your personal wealth, we just need to use a slightly different version of the accounting equation, which is assets minus liabilities equals owner's equity. So the calculation for owner's equity is $750,000 minus $535,000 equals $215,000. And there you have it. Now that you've calculated the number, you can put it into the owner's equity section of your balance sheet as your personal wealth. Then, even though we only have one item, let's put in a line for total owner's equity. The reason for doing this is that sometimes there will be more than one item of owner's equity, so it's customary to include a total. Okay, we're almost finished. There's just one thing left to do. You might remember that we said that balance sheets are built using this version of the accounting equation: assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. This means, to complete the picture, we need to put in a total of everything on the right-hand side of the equation, which is, of course, your liabilities and owner's equity. So, at the bottom of the right-hand side, simply write total liabilities and owner's equity, and put the number next to it. That number, $750,000, is exactly the same as your total assets. See how that works? $750,000 of assets equals $535,000 of liabilities plus $215,000 of owner's equity. That's how the accounting equation is used to create a balance sheet. Okay, so that's a simple balance sheet for personal finances. What about a balance sheet for a small business? Well, the process for putting together a balance sheet for a small business is exactly the same as a personal balance sheet. The only difference is that you include business assets and liabilities in your balance sheet instead of personal assets and liabilities. So let's go ahead and make a balance sheet for a small, uncomplicated business. First, we'll put a list of the assets on the left-hand side: cash at bank of $10,000, inventory of $50,000, accounts receivable of $5,000, and equipment of $4,000. Then we'll put in the total assets number of $69,000. Next, we'll make a list of the liabilities on the right-hand side: a loan of $20,000 and accounts payable of $5,000, and put in the total liabilities number of $25,000. After that, we'll fill in the owner's equity section on the right-hand side, but instead of calling the item personal wealth, we'll call it owner's equity, and put in the amount of $44,000, which we calculated as $69,000 minus $25,000 equals $44,000. Finally, we'll put in our total owner's equity line and our grand total on the right-hand side of the balance sheet, being $69,000 for total liabilities and owner's equity, which we calculated using the other version of the accounting equation. So there you have it, a business balance sheet built using the accounting equation. It really is that easy for small, uncomplicated businesses. Now, you might be wondering what to do if total liabilities is greater than total assets. In the examples we looked at, total assets were greater than total liabilities, so the amount of owner's equity was a positive number and sensibly fit into the balance sheet. Well, if your total liabilities is greater than your total assets, what will happen is that you will end up with a negative number for your owner's equity. So if your total assets comes to $69,000, but you have a big loan which makes your total liabilities equal $90,000, your owner's equity will be minus $21,000 and your balance sheet will look like this. As you can see, no matter what happens, the balance sheet follows the accounting equation. Your assets go on the left-hand side, your liabilities and owner's equity go on the right-hand side, and the grand total of both sides will be the same number. Alright then, now you know how to create a simple balance sheet for both your personal life and your business. But before you go, there is one more thing I'd like to discuss. You may have noticed that when we did the owner's equity section of our balance sheet, we only had one item. We had one item for personal wealth on the personal balance sheet and one item for owner's equity on the business balance sheet. While this is correct for this exercise, it's worth noting that the owner's equity section of a business's balance sheet is not always that simple. There are lots of different items that can go there, such as retained earnings, shareholders' equity, provisions, and more. Also, if the business is small and uncomplicated, but there is more than one owner, the owner's equity section might look something like this. As you can see, the total amount of owner's equity is divided between the different owners, who in this case each have an equal share of the business. So there you have it, a simple explanation of what a balance sheet is and how you can use it in your personal and business lives. Check out our channel for lots more videos on business and personal finance.